Hi, Rachel. We are just starting, and I'm Mags,
Hi.
and I am an embodiment coach, and this series is about getting the benefits of meditation without necessarily being like I'm in the lotus position. And so we know that there are a lot of benefits with meditation, and I can run through them, but mostly what I want to do is define the word. And when I talk about meditation, what I mean is training the mind in a gentle way, to be sure, but it's about improving skills that our minds have, like concentration or equanimity or compassion, um, soft skills, you might say. And so traditionally, that is done with a strict posture and absolutely no movement, trying very hard to ignore the body as much as possible and block that out and only work on this training the mind portion. So that's one school of thought. And the school that I participate in is about using the body and the mind together in the meditation. I'm going to bring my notes back to the front. Um, so when we talk about the mind and the body, it's one of those contradictions where both halves are true. They are separate things and they are also one. It's one system. So when we're doing meditation with the body, there's nothing nonsensical about that. And what we've realized over centuries is that ignoring the body leads to poor physical health, first of all. And it also leads to poor emotional health because we lose that connection with all these great signals from, let's say, our guts. So having an ability to develop your focus and concentration and things like that, while at the same time remaining in this holistic environment of including all of yourself is a much more holistic way of looking at it. So one thing that we see often is there's always half of the class when we're kids who need to doodle on every set of notes, and they're fidgeting and they're messing with the edges of everything. And when I was growing up, that was the kind of behavior that would get you a smack or definitely some kind of disciplinary action. Being in school was like formal meditation, be as still as possible. A lot of times the teacher would say, how dare you do this distracting thing like doodling? And almost always the person would say, whether it was me or not, would say, but it's actually helping me concentrate. And now we know a lot more about the neuroscience behind concentration and how the movement parts of the brain interact with other parts that control things like focus. So it makes sense that especially a repetitive motion with our physical bodies can be very beneficial to the part of our brain that's working on things like decision making. So when we talk about using movement with meditation or mindful movement, it's a spectrum. And so if you think at one end, excuse me, we have a completely still seated type of meditation, then it's not a perfect spectrum, but you can add different types of movement to that. So for instance, some types of seated meditation will use touch as part of it, and it's in a guided, formal way. Sometimes there's a specific motion that you might do. So for instance, if you've ever done Tai Chi, that's a great example of doing a specific motion and you're doing it in deep mindfulness. So that's going to mean that you get some of these benefits of meditation. You might, instead of doing a specific motion like Tai Chi, you might do a motion from day-to-day life, like walking, or sometimes people use washing the dishes. You can do that with extreme mindfulness, increasing mindfulness. And again, it transitions from exercise or even just transportation into a way to connect with your body and your mind at the same time. You get the coordination of both sides of your brain, and you get the calming effects of this movement. So if you are talking about the transition between mindfulness and meditation, mindfulness is absolutely an ingredient of meditation. It's an essential part. Meditation also has an aim. Mindfulness is a quality that can apply to any activity. Meditation is that mindfulness applied to a specific aim, like developing discipline or focus. So if you think about that in the context of, let's say, a walking meditation, as you increase the amount of mindfulness, awareness, focus, how deeply or how much detail you can have in your awareness of your body and gravity and the interaction with the earth or your clothing, the air, all of these things coming into your mind. When you're doing that with the aim of developing this quality, then it becomes a moving meditation instead of just a mindful movement practice. Okay, so I'm going to say that's enough talking for the moment, and let's do a practice together. So we'll start with a seated practice that's really simple. And if you want to bring your hand up in front of the camera so that I can kind of follow along with you, that's excellent for me for the feedback. In this exercise, we're going to use touch and mindfulness, and because we're touching our own hand, we have the feeling of this hand being touched and the feeling of these fingers doing the touching. So it's a ton of information coming up here from both arms. So what I'll ask you to do is come into a centered position where you feel you can be comfortable, but you're also alert. And then just have a look down at your hand. Let more of your brain's focus go to this part of me. I can think of it as a separate object. I can think of it as a precious object, part of myself, any of those things. And so then begin to touch, and if you follow the edge very slowly, tracing all the way around, you might even find a rhythm with your breath as you go. So just very slowly. When you get to this knuckle, if you inhale as you go up the finger, then you can exhale as you go back down. And your mind will be thinking, because that's what minds do. And like a child who is making a little bit of noise, you might just say, "Oh, come back here, do what I asked you to do." And then the brain gets distracted again and you bring it back again. There's no need for judgment. If you find that your breath and your finger don't want to be the same speed, you can choose which one you want to follow. And the idea is to make it an easy exercise for you. So this one is a popular one with children in particular, because it's so tangible and immediate, always with you. And having a child take 5 breaths while tracing the edges of their fingers does 2 things. The first thing is that it changes the state in the immediate moment. So 5 breaths is long enough for some of those hormones to run out, and the heart rate calms back down, or whatever effect is bringing the body back towards the middle, back towards homeostasis. So we've got 5 breaths, maybe that's 1 minute. And that's actually a long time in our body's physiology. So that's a great example of a quick technique that is centering and always available. It can even be done very subtly under the table, say at a meeting. You're feeling very stressed and you're thinking, man, I wish I could just take a time out for a meditative moment. Go listen to some beautiful music for 5 minutes. We can't do that in the middle of a meeting. You might be able to just put your hands in your lap and trace. So I'd love to hear what that experience was like for you. If anybody would like to speak, I should have permission to unmute yourself, or if you give me a hand, I'll unmute you.
Yeah, I'll offer what I felt. Oh, sorry.
Great.
I was quite surprised how sensitive the skin was in there. I've never noticed it before, actually, how sensitive that part is in between the fingers. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. It sort of felt like it was quite, quite personal to get there. It was nice. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's a really good noticing that you thought, here's a part of my body that I haven't really gotten in touch with before, literally in touch. And also that you said it was very personal. And that's an essential part of this experience, is that we turn inside, and 99% of our experience is all about everything that's going on out there. So even just that 1 minute of turning inside is really powerful, like you saw. It looks like Julie, you want to say?
Nope.
Okay. All good. Okay, so let's see, there's 3 essential elements that I'll mention before we do the next part. So the first one I've touched on a little bit, and that's about slowing down. A lot of that is about the culture that we're in and all of the demands that we have on us. Basically, everyone's moving as fast as they can all the time. And we move from thing to thing in this routine with no pauses, and that is being on autopilot. It's really useful for being efficient. It's not a good mode for being mindful. It's the opposite of mindfulness. So what happens is, you find, oh, I keep being clumsy, running into things, or I keep misplacing my keys, or little things can unravel when you lose that connection. So slowing down is actually telling the world, okay, I feel this pressure, but I'm not going to engage with that right now. I'm going to take 1 minute, maybe 10 minutes, and I'm going to slow down and go inside. Another bit that I think is essential is about letting yourself get bored. And there's, depending on how you count, 7 or 10 types of moving meditation that I teach, and lots of other types that you can find either online or in person. Most of them include a repetitive motion, and it's so easy for our brains that are like scrolling our brains are like, oh my God, can we do something different, please? It's important to get to that bored point, because then your brain can do the more juicy thinking instead of just chasing the new thing. So when you're doing a series and you feel like, oh, we're just going really slowly, it's great to do the fast motions as well, different times. But doing the slow motion allows you both to have the higher awareness and to get into this boredom. Training your brain to handle times of boredom is really key for keeping us out of trouble. There's a lot of candidates for misbehavior in the reaction to being bored, even though it sounds very benign. So reuniting these elements so that you can gently just bring your mind back to what your body is doing. The third element is being stubborn, because a mindfulness practice is not going to necessarily hit like a switch that changes something in the moment. You'll get some changes then, and then you'll also get the little accumulations that are coming up, and over time you'll say, wow, I was in traffic and I didn't even think about yelling when that person cut in front of me. A year ago, I would have been just shouting for 15 minutes after it happened. So those kind of changes take the accumulation. And for me, the way to get there is being stubborn over time. All right, so let's move a little bit more. I will remind you that everything is an invitation, and I trust you to choose what works well for you. So if you feel like standing, I'm going to stand. Move this over here. All right, so I've got my floor kind of in view now. And this practice is also going to be done without music. Music is a big influencer on our emotions and our attention, our energy levels. And so that means there can be huge advantages to using it and also some disadvantages. So for some of our practices, we'll be having silence. And for some, we'll have a very gentle amount of music. And then for some, there'll be big drums and something really motivating. So for this one, I'm going to ask you to just let yourself listen to that silence, whatever sounds are in your environment, for a moment. And when you feel slightly more settled, coming into a kind of tabletop position where your hands and knees are on the floor, and hopefully that is visible. So in this position, we can explore a bunch of directions. First thing I'll explore is just forward and back. And the idea is not stretching. It's not trying to find a limit. The idea is tuning in to, for me, I'm very aware of my knees on the ground and the palms of my hands. And when I move back and forth, the weight shifts from mostly on my palms to mostly on my knees. So I can play with that a little bit. Making movements that are slow and small to start, and not necessarily getting faster or larger movements, but seeing what feels good or interesting. And then when I feel I've learned enough from forward and back, I might try the twisting kind of motion, as if I'm looking over my left shoulder at my left hip, and the same on the other side. I might be thinking about where I'm feeling that. Is it my hip or my shoulder or my spine, my rib cage? Can you picture the motion that your pelvis is making as your body shifts? You don't actually need to picture it like an anatomy textbook, but rather experience it. And shifting now to the up and down motion, the familiar, possibly cat and cow, where your spine curves forwards and back. These positions, compressing and expanding your chest and your abdomen, can bring up a lot of emotion. And if that happens, try not to greet it with any judgment or push it away, but just allow it. All right, let's see what else we can go around in a kind of flat plane. This lets the round joints of our shoulders and hips do their magic. And for me, it's doing something I can feel in my low back that's different. And also my left hand. The last stage in the inquiry is, what kind of motion would my body really like to have in this kind of position right now? Are we having to sit back? Let my armpits stretch a little more. And the question is, how do you know what stretch your body needs? There's the skill of listening deeply in your body. There's the experimentation with a lot of different things. And then there's the gut feeling, the intuition of, this is the motion that's going to feel really yummy. The more movement you can do with that focus on what would feel yummy right now, then the more quickly you have access to that feeling again. So I'm going to bring my chair back over to the computer. Okay, I didn't specifically note the time, but I'm going to say that was maybe 3 minutes, I'm guessing. Again, just a short time. There's no need to feel like, oh, if I can't do an hour's meditation, it doesn't count. Just because some people do it that way doesn't make it the best way to do it. And now, for me, remembering that I have the power to change how I'm feeling so dramatically with just 3 or 5 minutes of rolling around on the floor or doing a little dance, it's extremely powerful. And it makes me feel that I have control over every moment, which is actually true. All right, so I wanted to demonstrate both a kind of seated, very close to seated meditation end of the spectrum, and then this exercise that we did on the floor is kind of in the middle. Then there will be walking and dancing and other kinds of things along that spectrum. And I drew out a picture of what that might look like today, which is just a very rough drawing, but there's so many possibilities once you start to think about the combination of being mindful and doing a repetitive movement. So there's a lot of soothing grooves in our future in the next few months. So I'm going to release the muting. And so would anyone else like to talk about how the second exercise felt? You can unmute yourself. All right.
I'll just say something quickly, just for a bit of, yeah, it reminded me of doing yoga. Like I do yoga every morning and sort of felt the similar, and it's amazing how quickly your mind goes into that peaceful place when you do start that movement and concentrate on the movement.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would really have that muscle memory kind of built up of dropping in, as I say. Yeah. That's great.
Because I was quite strict with myself, like doing it every day, and now it's sort of, it just becomes, it's like, yeah, it's easier, second nature now. So
what style do you do?
I just do hatha yoga, vinyasa, and so
nice. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I have done it. I did a bunch with an app. I haven't done it very much in person, but I'd really like to do some in classes.
Yeah.
And Julie, I'm also curious if you've noticed in your yoga that difference between I'm doing yoga so that I can tick the box for today versus I'm doing yoga so that I can be flexible and strong versus like now I'm letting my mind develop that quality.
Yeah, it's it definitely helps me get through the day. Like I find if I haven't done it, which is very rarely, then I do notice a difference in the day. I just seem to be a bit more even keeled, I think, throughout the day if I've done the yoga in the morning. So it started off, it was more a physical type thing, but now it's definitely moved into the mental. Yeah, but it's surprising how much it helps both realms for me. So
Absolutely.
no, become a good habit, Yeah, that's a great habit. I enjoy. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. I would like to say in closing that I meant to say at the beginning that I extend my respect to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which is where I am, and their ongoing custodianship of the land. And I was also going to say a little bit about my training and what else is coming up. So one of the other kind of legs of the Wise Body group is for Nia Dance Technique, and that is a barefoot, optionally barefoot fitness fusion, and it's a dance with healing and different movement art styles in it. So sometimes there'll be yoga or something like Feldenkrais blended in, and then there's also martial arts influence bits. And it's about doing a dance that feels really good in your body, and you can surprise yourself sometimes. It's very simple choreography, and so I'm going to be having in-person classes with that starting probably February. And between now and then, a few pop-ups, probably Paddington. So yeah, I'd love to see you at those. And yeah, keep on checking out the meetup group. There'll be more and more things added each week. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mags. Thank you very
All
much.
right, take care.
Bye.
Have a great
Thank
rest of your
you.
night. You're welcome.